I know we spoke to both Kate and George after the match, but sometimes your mindset's in a different place 24, 48 hours later, as opposed to the sort of emotional aftermath. Like in the end, Wolves gave you a little bit of a humbling, especially with the 2 goals in the dying minutes, George. What do you make of it now, reflecting back? Did the manager get the formation right? Were you too open towards the end? A lot of people were blaming the likes of Eric Dyer and Davis. What's your head saying 24 hours later?
Darren Davies. My head's still gone on Darren Davies, I'll be honest. I'm still sat there. I've watched the goals back about 20, 30 times. And I've literally watched them back just looking at them. I've got frames, pictures of just those two to see where they are. And I just can't help but think, like, without those two, we'd be in so much a better place. But I'll be honest, I do think Ange got it wrong from the jump. I think we went too defensive. I think playing with Højbjerg in the middle, with Bissouma and Sarr, it just lacked creativity. It lacked anyone with real good ball retention in our midfield. And you saw that from the first 10, 15 minutes. We couldn't keep the ball. I think Wolves played better than us pretty much the whole game, I'll be honest. We were on the back foot. You even see Brennan Johnson come out and say something about we played too safe, and that was exactly it. It just didn't look like the Tottenham of this season. I don't know if it was a tactical tweak from Ange, but a lot of the players didn't press. That we missed the press. I mean, the whole point for us is that we have our front three and we have our midfield three, and that we knew our defense was poor, and we thought, do you know what, let's defend from the front. We didn't do none of that on the weekend. We wasn't defending from the front. We let the game come to us. We let Wolves take control of the game, and after 1-0, it just seemed too comfortable, too complacent. And the likes of Bissouma, who put in an absolute disgraceful performance, he's a senior player in this team, as in he's one of the older players. You expect a lot more from him, especially how he started this season. So absolute poor performance all round. I'd like to say you could throw the blame at a specific person, and as much as I hate Darren Davies and I'd love to throw it their way, you have to throw it at everyone because there wasn't one good player on the pitch. I don't feel like Ange set the team up good, and yeah, just reflect on it. It just all went to bad. Literally everything that you could think could go bad, and anyone that could play bad played bad. So everything went Wolves' way. They deserved the win. The first goal was class. I'll give it to them. That first goal was absolutely class. That finish and touch from Sarabia was, that you really can't say much.
It was special. It was very special.
It really was. And then the last goal, I mean, it just had to be in Tottenham fashion, innit? It really was. Like, you just, for me, I remember when I was watching the game, I was watching it on the BT Sport app, so you're like delayed by maybe 20 seconds or so. When we got that free kick and we passed it forward, I thought, let me check my phone. Maybe it's full time now, 1-1. And I see the 2-1 on my phone, and I'm like, nah, surely not. And I'm watching it as it's going along. They're going down. I'm like, nah. Then, as we do as fans, as soon as the goal goes in, you're waiting for VAR. You think, VAR might come and save me.
Yeah.
It didn't save us at all the weekend, and we didn't deserve it, man. You got to give it to Wolves. They played better than us. They deserved the win. And yeah, man, we really can't complain. There is no excuses for us. We played poorly.
Lewis, a lot of people a lot of Spurs fans in the chat on Thursday when we were on, sort of said that people shouldn't be doubting them. They can cope with the injuries. There'll be no problems. That lasted about 3 minutes and they did look good. And then things fell apart. Was this a case of the players in the team not being able to understand and play Andrew's football? Or is it also a case that they were still too open in the dying moments of a game where they were going to get over the line? Was it a combination of the players not being good enough and the manager not adapting his tactics to get the job over the line?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously they've got a couple. Obviously Romero's out. They've got the injuries. We all know that, and everyone's just been expecting Spurs to do the Spursy thing and sort of crumble. And I said last week, I think Spurs are now in damage limitation mode. I think all hopes of a title are gone. I know not every Spurs fan was saying they're going to win the title, but there was a few out there saying that they could do it. I think now they're in damage limitation mode because if you go back 2 weeks, right, Spurs were flying. The Ange hype was at max, and they were chilling. And if you would have said 2 weeks ago, Spurs not getting top four, people look at you weird. Now I genuinely think that they need to be careful because they've got some real tough games. I'm sure the Spurs guys have looked at the fixtures coming up. It's not looking good, Brev, is all I'd say. And I think they're in damage limitation mode. I think they just need to get through this next period, basically until they get all the players back, like Maddison and Van der Ven. And if they can stay within that sort of top five and not fall off, I think that's a success. You know, I think the Ange hype probably went overboard, if we're all being honest. I mean, I think that went way too far. But yeah, I mean, it's wild. And I look at Spurs' fixtures, and I'm just thinking, could these guys just like fall away from that top four? I mean, you play Villa next, I believe. That's not going to be an easy game. And United, they're the informed team in the league. If you believe the form guide, they're only 5 points behind them. So listen, I just think Spurs just need to be careful here because they had a great start to the season. The whole fan base was buzzing. Some got carried away, some didn't. If we look back if we go forward 4 weeks' time, they could be in a bad situation if they can't fix this because they've lost the last 2 games. Maddison, no Van der Ven, Romero still out. Yeah, it's not looking good, man. They need to turn this around big time, and they got Villa as well in the next match.
I don't know if you know, but Villa's away record is absolutely atrocious this season. They're coming to our ground. So as much as I'd like to say, I'm not going to say we're going to go there and win, innit? We've got 2 weeks. Let's see where the team's at. But I wouldn't be so confident in Villa away from home.
Yeah, but bro, you also got to remember they're playing a Spurs side with no Romero, no Van der Ven, no Maddison. Yeah,
no Basuma.
No Basuma. So you can talk about Villa not having a great away record. I don't know their away record, but they're going to be coming to your ground buzzing. And for them, yeah, they could get top 4 if they beat you. They don't need no incentive. They don't need to think about their past form away from home. They've got the biggest incentive going that they could be in the top 4 after 13 games. And they're playing a heavily weakened Spurs. And by the way, your players, when they're playing that, they're not going into that game confident, man. 2 L's on the bounce. They're going to be.
It's an interesting one, right? Their away record this season 7 points, but your home record this season 12, which is not a bad home record, but it's not. You think about Villa's home record 18 points, Liverpool's 18 points, Arsenal's 17 points, City's 15 points. They've only played 5. In fairness, you've only played 5 at home as well. Some teams have played a few more than you, but yeah, I get. Kate, how do you see it? Because I know you've been someone that's been happy with what you're doing. You haven't really you've not really jumped aboard the hype train too much. You've told Tottenham fans to calm down. A few injuries, we could be in a little bit of trouble. Let's take our time with this. And I know you're not one to say I told you so, but it kind of feels like, excuse the pun, but there's a lot of chickens coming home to roost.
I agree with Lewis. I think we're on the edge of the cliff and just waiting to fall off. I'm not going to lie. Villa next. They look so dangerous with Diaby, Watkins. They're both, absolutely flying. Man City, no chance. We've got West Ham away, Newcastle, Forest, Everton, Brighton. I mean, the Villa, Man City, West Ham, Newcastle, I'll be amazed if we get anything out of it. I'm not going to lie. I think we're down to the bare bones. Everyone says that we had a good window because we got Van der Ven, Maddison, Vicario, but we also got Phillips, who is meant to be a centre-back, and Andrew's persisting in playing Dyer over him. So he's not that good. I mean, we just had reports today, Udogie's injured, pulled out of international duty. I don't know if it's going to be a case of he has 2 weeks off and he'll come back and he'll be fine. But yeah, I fear the worst. I mean, I don't see us making top 4, not going to lie. I said at the start of the season, any sort of Europe, and I'd be happy because it's an improvement. And yeah, I'm sticking with that. I just think, for me, I would call back Alfred Devine from Port Vale. He's not playing there. He's a good attacking midfield option, better than Lo Celso, in my opinion, to take on Maddison's role. But yeah, it's exactly, like I said, I don't want to say I told you so, but it's exactly what I knew would happen. If we get a couple of injuries, it all goes tits up. And that's exactly what's happened. Everything's happened at once.
Okay, just a few things there. Alfred Devine's actually played a few games, if you've seen in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, not a full 90 minutes, I don't think. He's had a full 90 minutes yet.
I wouldn't think about calling him back just because I think he needs experience. But I don't see this notion of, look, I understand why our team's going to be bare and why we're not going to be looking at picking up a lot of points. We've got a hard run leading into Christmas. There's no doubt about that. And without Maddison, it's not going to be easy at all. But we've got Romero coming back. We all know having Romero back and Udogie back after the next game. Well, Romero after City. Let's say after the City game. that's a lot more stability in our back line. I think right now that one of the main problems is that with our back line that we currently put out this weekend, we can't build out from the back. We fail to keep the ball. We can't move the ball. And those phases of play that a lot of the teams used to, they're not taking up the same positions. So for me, once Romero is back, once Udogie is back, you're going to see, of course, we're not going to be the same high-flying Spurs that we started off the season at. We're not going to maintain that. But you're going to see a different team, and I reckon you'll see a lot more stable teams. So when we go into the games against Newcastle, against West Ham, bear in mind, both of these teams play Europe, and during that December period, they're both going to be playing games during the week and then games on the weekend. So they're going to be doing the Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday schedule that we're going to be able to take advantage of those. And I see us picking up points in those games in particular. Maybe the next 2 games I think are going to be tough for us. But a lot of people that think it's all down and out throughout the Christmas period, I really don't think so.
I like your enthusiasm, but and your confidence. I don't see it myself. All the while, Diane Davis are anywhere near that team, and the likes of Lo Celso are there, ready to come on. For me, they've let down manager after manager, year after year, and it's just, I've got no faith in any of them.
Rory, what do you make of this? As a Gooner looking from the outside in, do you still think top 4 is a shoo-in, as many Spurs fans do? Or do you agree more with Kate and Lewis that the wheels could be about to fall off of Big Angie's bus?
I don't think it's a shoo-in. I think Villa will continue to be there or thereabouts. I think Chelsea could make a late surge. The same arguments that can be made for Spurs about no Europe. Chelsea don't have that either, and they've got a much bigger squad if they need it. But I do think, do you know what, right? I was on the concourse at the Emirates when the second goal went in, and the cheer was one that you don't, like. We've seen Spurs concede goals on the concourse before, and there's normally like, a jeer and some laughter, but there was a genuine cheer of relief. I think that whilst we'd all been saying, Spurs will collapse, Spurs will fall apart, 10 games in they hadn't, and they were looking good, and it was beginning to be like, well, this is getting a bit concerning. So there was definitely a feeling of relief that Spurs returned to Spurs, but bring back the key players. There's nothing to stop them going on the same sort of run that they've just had when you enter sort of February, March, April. So I think they'll be there or thereabouts for top 4. I do think that Liverpool, Arsenal and Man City will pull away, but it'll be close.
Yeah, I think. Listen, I'm not surprised with the cheering. We saw on the terrace on Saturday once the game ended. I think it's the biggest Spurs stream we've ever done, and I would say a large amount of that was rivals kind of turning up to sort of have their pop, as it were. But yeah, Villa are an interesting one when it comes to the top 4 race because, and I think this is not a dig at Tottenham, but Tottenham have been hugely celebrated in the media. Ange ball bigged up. It's been looked at as innovative. We've seen the headlines that nobody's ever fixed a club this quickly. I've seen headlines saying he's the new Sir Alex Ferguson. And Aston Villa, with no praise at all, 1 point behind them. So I think to write Aston Villa, and by the way, and Arsenal 1 point ahead of them, and Arsenal have been spoken about this season as being absolutely shocking compared to last year. And I do think there's an element here of, and I say this in the right way, I think Spurs have been great, and I've praised them so many times this season. But the way they've been spoken about at times is as though they're 10 to 15 points clear at the top of the league. I'm not even saying about anybody on this panel, just in general in the media. It's crazy.
But Terry, you just said Arsenal, people have rightly so said Arsenal way off from where they were last year, because this point last year, Arsenal not unbeaten, having however many points. They may not be unbeaten, but they had however many points they did have. All Arsenal fans recognize that they're probably about 5 points worse off, or if not more than where they were last season. So they aren't the team that they were last season. I think anyone making that observation isn't wrong to do so. And I think the big difference is that Tottenham came from down here to up here, and Arsenal come from up here to a bit lower. So that's where the observation comes from. I don't think it's wrong.
No, I understand. I mean, Arsenal were 4 had 4 extra points last year. So from a points total point of view, you could argue that. But equally, at this stage last year, I think Spurs had the same amount of points. It was 26 odd points. So in terms of start to the season, it was where it was. And I understand the praise for Big Andrew. I think he deserved it. But as I say, for me, the way I've seen Tottenham praised, right down to this time just almost a week ago, playing on the halfway line with 9 men and being open, I stand by this. And Spurs are being gaslit all week. Any other manager in the Premier League, including Pep, does that and ends up losing 4-1 from a winning position. Their team and the manager's tactics would be absolutely ridiculed, ripped apart. Why did you do it? And for some reason, it was celebrated as like discovering fire or the Wright brothers learning to fly. I found it very, very strange. And it was almost this, it was a weird concept for me. And I'm not saying Spurs deserve no praise. That isn't what I'm suggesting or alluding to. I'm just stating that I think they'll make top 4. They're still there, but I'm not looking beyond Villa. I'm definitely not looking beyond Newcastle. And we're going to get onto Chelsea a little bit later, but this Chelsea team is starting to do some really good things. And they're going to spend in January. They're going to go and buy a striker. They're going to probably buy a few more experienced players that maybe break the 25-year-old barrier, as it were. And I think Spurs have got to, I do think that what you said, George, I think Big Ange's got to adapt. I think you have to be a little bit more stable. I think you've got to sit back a little more. If he plays as open as he is doing until the 97th minute of the game, you are going to get beat by these teams you're playing soon because the Premier League's too good. And I mean this with all due respect. And I heard, what's his face? Jamie O'Hara say it. This isn't Scotland. In Scotland, Rangers and Celtic can almost do what they want and pretty much always guaranteed to win. This is just a different level of football. And I think that naivety from Big Ange at this level could end up costing you. You do need to sit back. You need to be more compact with the quality of players that you've got out. And then, I know you guys were serenading him a few weeks ago with we've got our Tottenham back, but your owners and Levy have got to go out in January and spend big again. I mean, you're a big spending club anyway. You are a big spending club. 420 million in the last 2 years is, I think, third highest in the Premier League. 1.8, 1.9 billion in Premier League history. You need to go out in January and buy big and buy solid, spend some more of that Harry Kane money and improve the squad. If you do that, then of course I think you can get top 4. But the other teams around you are all going to spend. So, yeah, it's an interesting time for Tottenham now, how they bounce back, how the manager reacts, how the team responds after losing. And